Hello everyone. Today we'll discuss about the cardiovascular system, CVS, a system which is meant for the heart and its pumping and the beating of the heart and the sounds of the heart, how the cardiac output is presented and what is the cardiac cycle and what is ECG, what are the disorders and how it alters and what are the physiological variations and what is the pathological variations, all will study in this system. So it is cardiovascular system is exactly meant for the transportation and the pumping of the blood. And this blood pumping is most important because there is a transportation of this particular substances like hormones, enzymes, gases, nutritive substances and metabolic waste and excretion and all this. So finally the blood maintains homeostasis in the body. It is one of the part of the homeostasis. Okay, right. And so this pumping of the blood because of the heart. Heart is a organ. So which is the particular pumping organ it is. Okay, right. What is heart and what are the parts of the heart? We'll come to learn. Okay, first, so heart is nothing but it is a pumping organ. It generates its own impulses. There is production of the impulses by its own. Okay, and by that it pumps the blood. This heart is made up of the cardiac muscle, and heart contains auricles and the ventricles. If you see the parts of the heart, it divides into three parts. One is right side of the heart and the left side of the heart and septum. Okay, right. What is? Come to the layers of the heart. If you see the layers of the heart, there are three layers are present. The outer layer is called as pericardium. Outer layer is called as pericardium. And the middle layer is called as myocardium. And the innermost layer and the last layer is called as endocardium. Pericardium, myocardium and endocardium. Fine. And if you see this diagram, we'll come to know all the parts of the heart. If you see, so the blue colored one is nothing but the veins it is. And the red color one is the arteries. And pale red color or the pink color, so that is inner parts of the heart. And here this heart is divided into right side and the left side. Right side of the heart pumps the impure blood and the left side of the heart pumps the pure blood. Impure blood is nothing but deoxygenated blood. It transported to the lungs from the heart. Okay, and next one is left side of the heart, which pumps the blood to the organs and different systems. That is the pure blood it is. Oxygenated blood. There are two auricles and two ventricles. So one is called as atria or atrium. And if it is plural, that is called as auricles. Atriums is nothing but the auricle. Okay, so first upper part of the heart, whatever it is, either right or left, upper part of the heart. So totally heart contains 4 chambers. There are 2 atria and the 2 ventricle. Atria are upper part of the heart, that is 2 chambers. One is right upper and another one is left upper. And downwards, lower parts are 2. One is ventricle, right ventricle, and another one is left ventricle. And so right atrium is connected with the vena cava, by which the blood comes into the heart. Okay, and next one is, so by which left atrium, by which it collect the blood from the lungs, and right ventricle which sends the blood into the lungs, that is impure blood. That in the sense what? Right atrium to the blood comes into the right ventricle. Right atrium get the blood from the vena cava, superior vena cava and the inferior vena cava. And after that, left atrium get the blood from lungs, oxygenated blood, and it sends blood into the left ventricle. And that blood is pumped to the different organs by aorta. Aorta is a major artery it is. Okay, and next one is valves. There are two types of the valves and the two types of the gates are present. Including of all this, it called as valves. 4 valves are there completely. So one is bicuspid valve, another one is tricuspid valve, and next one is aortic valve, and another one is pulmonary valve. Bicuspid valve is present left side of the heart, and the tricuspid valve is present on the right side of the heart. Okay, and here aortic valve is present on the left side of the heart, and the pulmonary valve is present on the right side of the heart. That is in between the aorta and the ventricles. So bicuspid valve is present is in between the auricle and the ventricle, and tricuspid valve is present on the left side, that is auricle and the ventricle. And so pulmonary valve and the aortic valve are the which sends the blood outside. Aortic valve connected to the aorta, which sends the blood to the organs, pumping of the blood to the different systems, and pulmonary valve which sends the blood to the lungs, impure blood it is. There is a purification of the blood, and it comes through the systemic pulmonary circulation into the left atrium, and that is what the valves it is. And next one is, if you see the actions of the heart, there are 4 actions of the heart. That is what? Chronotropic action, inotropic action, dromotropic action, and the bathmotropic action. The chronotropic action is nothing but the frequency. It is an action with the frequency. If the frequency is increased, that is frequency is increased, and the decreased frequency, whatever it is, this frequency is maintained by the chronotropic action. Okay, and next one is inotropic action. It is nothing but force of contraction. Inotropic action is for the force of contraction. And next one is dromotropic action. Dromotropic action is nothing but conduction of the impulses. This conduction of impulses is nothing but called as dromotropic action. And last one is bathmotropic action. Bathmotropic action is nothing but excitability of the cardiac muscle. Okay, chronotropic action, frequency, inotropic action, force of contraction, dromotropic action, conduction of impulses, bathmotropic action, excitability of the cardiac muscle. Right, and next, if you see the blood vessels from the heart and to the heart, and that is divided into 2 types. One is arterial system and another one is venous system. Arterial system in the sense from the heart to the different organs, to the different tissues, which sends pure blood or oxygenated blood to the different organs by the arterial system, and venous system which carries the blood to the heart from the organs and systems and tissues. To the heart, venous system; from the heart, arterial system. Okay, and there are some complications of the blood vessel, later on we'll discuss, and that is what there is strucking in the blood vessels and the capillaries, and nothing but coagulation in the blood vessels. Okay, the vessels are blocked. Okay, all these are complications in the blood vessels. Okay, and next, divisions of the circulation. If you see the divisions of the circulation, there are two types of the divisions. One is systemic circulation and another one is pulmonary circulation. If you see the systemic circulation is nothing but from the heart to the different systems like digestive system, renal system, reproductive system, respiratory system, to the all this there is action. So what? From the heart to the different systems, and at the same time from the systems to again to the heart. That is called as systemic circulation. Okay, and next one is pulmonary circulation. Pulmonary circulation is a different system. It is generally artery. In the case of the systemic circulation, the arteries carries oxygenated blood and veins carries deoxygenated blood to the systems from the heart. And whereas come to the pulmonary circulation is a system which carries the blood from the heart to lungs and lungs to heart. Here the arteries carries the impure blood from the heart to lungs. That artery called as pulmonary artery, as we discussed already in the respiratory system. Yes? Okay. And another one is pulmonary vein, which carries the blood, that in the sense pure blood, oxygenated blood. Pulmonary arteries carries deoxygenated blood from the heart to the lungs, and pulmonary veins which carries the pure blood, nothing but the oxygenated blood from the lungs to this one, heart. Circulation. Circulation is in two types as we discussed just now. Okay, so one is systemic circulation and the pulmonary circulation, and including of these two, another circulation is also there, that is what? Coronary circulation. A circulation which is specialized for the heart is called as coronary circulation. And the pulmonary circulation, circulation in between the lungs and at the same time heart. Lungs and heart is called as pulmonary circulation, specialized for the heart, coronary circulation, and remaining all the systems, that is called as systemic circulation. In this there are arterial system and another one is venous system is there. As we are seeing in this diagram, so we'll come to know what is there. Okay, so first aorta takes the blood or collected blood from the heart, and after that, so that aorta divides into arteries, and arteries divides into arterioles, and arterioles divides into capillary blood. And in the capillary blood there is a physiological shunt, that is nothing but the arteries gets changed into the veins. That in the sense at the tissue level, the tissues takes the oxygen from the artery capillaries and sends impure blood, nothing but deoxygenated blood, into the venous capillaries. And that venous capillaries come together and it forms venules. and these venules come together and it forms veins. And next one, these veins come together and it forms vena cava. If it is below the level of the heart, that is called as inferior vena cava, and it is above the level of the heart, that is called as superior vena cava. Above the level of the heart, superior vena cava, and below the level of the heart, that is called as inferior vena cava. Okay, and next one is, if you see the properties of the heart, and in case of the properties of the heart, so the first property is excitability. Heart properties in the sense the cardiac muscle properties it is. The first one is excitability. What is excitability? Excitability is nothing but the change in the environment by the stimulus is called as excitability. This change occurs because of the action potential evoking by the applying of the stimulus. Generally, there is two types of the potentials are present in the heart. One is resting membrane potential and another one is action potential. When we are applying the stimulus or whatever it is, self-impulses, okay, so when there is applying of the stimulus, okay, till that there is resting membrane potential is present here. This resting membrane potential in case of the cardiac muscle, that is about minus 85 to minus 95 millivolts. Okay, and there is for the single cardiac muscle it is. If it is in case of the SCA node, that is about minus 55 to 60 millivolts. And in case of the Purkinje fibers, that is about minus 90 to minus 100 millivolts. Okay, so single cardiac muscle, that is minus 85 to 95 millivolts, and sinoatrial node, so that is minus 55 to 60 millivolts, and next Purkinje fibers, that is about minus 90 to minus 100 millivolts. That is the resting membrane potential. And if you see when we are applying the stimulus, immediately there is action potential evoked. So what are the phases in the sense? There are some stages, four types of the phases occurs during this. So one is initial depolarization. So when the action potential is evoking initial depolarization, that is nothing but the firing level and the overshoot, all these comes under the initial depolarization. And next one is initial repolarization, and there is a plateau or the final depolarization. This is third stage, and next one is final repolarization again. Initial depolarization, initial repolarization, and next one is a plateau, and this is also called as final depolarization, and next one is final repolarization. If you see this diagram, we'll come to know what is this. The first one is nothing but there is evoking of all this, and if you see the levels of that membrane potentials, we'll come to know everything in this. At first, there is in the first stage there is immediate depolarization. That is the first phase, orange colored line. And next one is there is initial depolarization. That is like this type of curve. Okay, that is violet colored curve. And next one is third stage, that is when the calcium channels are closed, that is the third phase, that is nothing but a plateau or the final depolarization. And next one is the black color line, that is the final repolarization it is. And that is what the excitability, so evoking of the action potential, and next one is resting membrane potentials in the excitability. And after that, the next property is rhythmicity. Rhythmicity is nothing but so the continuous working of the heart. That in the sense, a continuous stimulus is presented, and by that there is a excitability, and by that there is nothing but all these come together and the heart will beat. Okay, and in this rhythmicity, so what happened? There is a pacemaker. Because of the pacemaker only, the rhythmicity is maintained. Continuous, repeated, and with the same time of the gap, there is a stimulus that is called as rhythmicity. In this rhythmicity, so there is a pacemaker which applies its own impulses. That is a system, so is called as conductive system, is represented in case of the heart only. It generates its own impulses. That is the heart. And in this heart, there is a pacemaker which produces the impulses. And here, the rhythmicity is in different phases in the human heart. That is, the SA node is the pacemaker of the human being. SA node is nothing but sinoatrial node. Okay, so when this sinoatrial node is the pacemaker, immediately it generates the impulses, and by that, and the heartbeat is about 70 to 80 beats per minute. And so next, after the sinoatrial node, all this is conductive system. And next one is AV node, atrioventricular node, a node which is present in between the atrium and the ventricle. Sinoatrial node is present on the right side of the heart, that is on the right atrium. And AV node is present in between the atrium and the ventricle. That's why only it is called as atrioventricular node. Okay, if this atrioventricular node is the pacemaker, when SA node is not working, then the heartbeat is about 40 to 60 beats per minute. Okay, and next one is if the atrial muscle, after the AV node, atrial muscle. If the atrial muscle is the pacemaker, when AV node is not working, then the heartbeat is about same as like AV node, that is about 40 to 60 beats per minute. And next one is Purkinje fibers. Before the Purkinje fibers, there is bundle of his, and through that bundle of his, the Purkinje fibers which supplies directly to the cardiac muscle. If this becomes the pacemaker, when all above the conductive system is not working, then the Purkinje fibers impulses generated its own impulses. And when the Purkinje fibers generating its impulses, that is about 35 to 40 beats per minute. And next one is ventricular muscle. If the ventricular muscle becomes the pacemaker when all above 4 are not worked at all, then the heartbeat is about 20 to 40 beats per minute. And next one is conductivity. Another property it is excitability, rhythmicity, and next one is conductivity. If you see this conductivity, the conductivity is a system it is. The pacemaker maintenance system. Like SA node generating impulses through the atrial muscle, that impulses pass it to the AV node. And through the AV node, it reaches to the bundle of his. And through the bundle of his, that impulses reach to the Purkinje fibers and ventricular muscle and the totally to the cardiac muscle. That is mainly depends upon the velocity of impulses at different parts of the conductive system. Already we saw this one just before in the slide. Okay, and next one is, if you see this, so how this system, conductive system is there. Okay, on the right side it generates, so which one? Sinoatrial node generates its own impulses, and through that AV node to bundle of is to Purkinje fibers, and by that left bundle branch, right bundle branch, and his bundle through the Purkinje fibers, and totally it supplies to all heart cardiac muscle impulses from the SA node to total heart cardiac muscle. That is called as conductive system. It is a conductivity property. And next property is contractility. If you see this contractility, so it is, so contraction of the heart it is. It mainly depends upon the four factors. One is Alarnan law, and another one is staircase phenomenon, and next one is summation of the subliminal stimuli, and next one is a refractory period. First come to the Alarnan law. If you see this Alarnan law, so when whatever it is the strength of the stimulus, whatever it is, whether so the cardiac muscle totally reacted to that stimulus or not at all, that is called as Alarnan law. Either total muscle is reacted or not at all is called as Alarnan law. And next one is staircase phenomenon. If there is increase in the impulses, then the cardiac muscle, by the beneficial effect it shows, when the beneficial effect it shows, cardiac muscle shows, that is, it will get like staircase phenomenon type of the stimulus and the excitability and that type of contractions. And next one is summation of the subminimal stimuli. So actually, if for example, if it needs 6 volts for the complete contraction of the heart, if only 2 volts is produced, stimulus is produced by the SA node. For example, it is, if it is only produces 2 volts, actually it needs 6 volts, isn't it? Okay, so there is a summation of the stimulus, 2 volts plus another 2 volts plus another 2 volts. That is what summation of the stimulus, and then heart give response to the exact 6 volts. Isn't it? That is what the summation of the stimulus. And next one is refractory period. Refractory period is in 2 types. One is absolutely refractory period and another one is relative refractory period. And after this, next topic is cardiac cycle. What is this cardiac cycle? Cardiac cycle is nothing but the events occurs during the heart beating. Okay, so during this, so there are atrium contracted, at the same time ventricle contracted in the heart by the stimulus. Okay, and atrium relaxes and at the same time ventricle relaxes. How all this process? That is what we call as events in the cardiac cycle. Okay, so the atrial events and at the same time ventricular events. This cardiac cycle is majorly, so what divides into atrial events and the ventricular events. And if you see the atrial events, that atrial events so is divided into 2 types. One is atrial systole and another one is atrial diastole. Systole is nothing but the contraction of the heart. Atrial systole is nothing but contraction of the atrium. And next one is atrial diastole. Relaxation is called as atrial diastole. And during this, the divisions and the durations in the cardiac cycle. So if you see this, so the atrium, how it contracts and how it relaxes. And the duration of the each cardiac cycle is about 0.8 seconds it is. How that 0.8 seconds is divided in the sense, in case of the atrial events, that is about, there are two divisions in the atrial events. One is atrial systole and another one is atrial diastole. In case of the atrial systole, that is about 0.11 second, nothing but that one is negligible, so that it is 0.1 second. And atrial diastole takes 0.69 seconds, is nothing but 0.7 seconds. This 0.7 seconds and that 0.1 second, it is 0.8 seconds. Atrial events takes 0.8 seconds, and the same time ventricular events also takes 0.8 seconds. And for the total cardiac cycle, finally it takes obviously 0.8 seconds it is. This is for the atrial events. And next one is ventricular events. If you see these ventricular events, there are, so in this, the ventricular systole and the ventricular diastole. Two events again in the ventricle also, two events again. Okay, so for the ventricular systole, it takes 0.27 seconds, that is nothing but the 0.3 seconds. And ventricular diastole, it takes 0.53 seconds, is nothing but 0.5 seconds. Okay, and the ventricular systole divides into two subdivisions, and the ventricular diastole is divided into 5 subdivisions. Ventricular systole divides into 2 subdivisions and the ventricular diastole is divided into 5 subdivisions. If you see this diagram, we'll come to know everything. The innermost cardiac cycle represented there, and the second circle is the atrial events, and the last circle, biggest circle, is the ventricular events it is. Okay, cardiac cycle representation, and the second circle or the middle circle is the atrial events, and the outermost circle is the ventricular events. First, it starts with the atrial systole, the middle circle, so which is, so with the color, okay, AS, symbolic AS, atrial systole, that is about 0.1 second. And remain total circle, that middle circle, is 0.7 seconds, that is the atrial diastole. Okay, and next one is the outermost circle, that is nothing but the ventricular events. If you see these ventricular events, in the outer, when the atrial systole is stopped, obviously atrial diastole, isn't it? Okay. At the same time, in the outer circle, so then there is a ventricular systole starts, that is about 3 seconds, 0.1 to 2, 2 to 3, 3 to 4. Okay. So, and 3 seconds of the ventricular systole, and remain cycle is the ventricular diastole. And next, if you see the description of this ventricular events, that is, the first one is isometric contraction period, and next one is ejection period, and next one is protodiastole and isometric relaxation period, and next one is rapid filling phase, and after that slow filling phase, and next rapid filling phase again. So starts with the atrial systole and immediately isometric contraction, ejection period, protodiastole, isometric relaxation, and next rapid filling, slow filling, and the rapid filling with the atrial systole. And if you see this cycle, we'll come to know so how the events are takes place. Isometric contraction. So when ventricle is completely filled and the atrium is the completely filled, there is a atrial systole. By that, isometric contraction occurs. And so that blood comes into the ventricle and then there is a isometric contraction. In case of the isometric contraction, so what happens? So valves, bicuspid valve, tricuspid valves are closed and the pulmonary valve and the aortic valve are open. And then there is a contraction and the blood is ejected out. That is what the ejection period. By the isometric contraction, ejection period is possible. Complete blood is going outside by the closing of the two valves, bicuspid valve and the tricuspid valve. And after that, opening of these two valves, pulmonary valve and the aortic valve. And next one is, after the ejection period, protodiastole. In case of the protodiastole, there is slowly relaxation of the atrium and by that followed by the ventricle contraction. And here, after that, isometric relaxation. Closing, in case of the isometric relaxation, closing of these two valves, pulmonary valve and the aortic valve, and opening of the bicuspid valve and the tricuspid valve. And firstly slowly filling and rapidly fill this ventricle by the atrium. And during this, some of the pressure changes occurs. What are the pressure changes? In the sense, in case of the left atrium, the maximum pressure is about 7 to 8 millimeters of mercury, and the minimum pressure is about 0 to 2 millimeters of mercury. And next one is, in case of right atrium, that is about 5 to 6 millimeters of mercury is the maximum pressure, and the 0 to 2 millimeters of the mercury is the minimum pressure. And in case of the left ventricle, that is about 120 millimeters of the mercury, and the minimum pressure is about 5 millimeters of the mercury. And next one is, in case of right ventricle, the maximum pressure is about 25 millimeters of the mercury, and the minimum pressure is about 2 to 3 millimeters of the mercury. And the systemic aorta, next after that, so after the left ventricle, systemic aorta only. In case of this systemic aorta, that is about 120 millimeters of the mercury, and the 80 millimeters of the mercury is the minimum pressure. In the aorta, that is a normal blood pressure. 120 millimeters of the mercury is the systolic blood pressure, this is the maximum pressure, and the minimum pressure, that is the diastolic blood pressure, is about 80 millimeters of the mercury. And in case of the pulmonary artery, the 25 millimeters of the mercury is the maximum pressure, and the 7 to 8 millimeters of the mercury is the lowest or the minimum pressure. And these are the pressure changes in the system and the cardiac cycle. And during this cardiac cycle, how the atrial and the ventricular pressures are seen in the sense. So during all this, atrial systole, isometric contraction and ejection period, protodiastole, isometric relaxation, slow filling, rapid filling, and next continued by the atrial systole. And during all this, how the pressure changes occurs in the sense. So at the level of the atrial systole, the pressure is increased. And at the level of isometric contraction, pressure is increased. Intra-atrial pressure. And so at the ejection period, pressure is increased. At the level of protodiastole, the pressure is decreased. And isometric relaxation, completely relaxation of the minimum pressure is present in the atrium and the ventricle. And next one, at the rapid and slow and rapid filling, So again the pressure is increased, and then atrial systole, the pressure is increased. And if you see the ventricular pressures continuously during the systole it is increased, and during the diastole it is decreased. In all the phases, so atrial systole, isometric contraction, ejection period, it is increased. And during the phases like protodiastole, isometric relaxation, it is decreased. And if you see the hard sounds, or there are 4 types of the sounds are present, and if you see that hard sounds are majorly what we can listen only 2 types, but actually there are 4 types of the hard sounds. First hard sound, second hard sound, third hard sound, and the fourth hard sound. If you see the features and everything of this hard sounds, is first hard sound occurs during the isometric contraction period and the part of the ejection period. During the first hard sound, during the isometric contraction and the ejection period. And the characters, if you see the characters of this, it is long, soft, and the low pitched sound it resembles like lub. The sounds what we are listening, lub, is the first hard sound it is. And next one is, the cause of this first hard sound is closure of the atrioventricular wall, and the duration is about 0.10 seconds to 0.17 seconds, and the frequency is about 25 to 45, and the relation with the ECG is, it is the peak of the R wave. Later on we'll come to know what is the ECG waves, but just remember that it is resembles with the, it is considered as peak of the R wave, and the number of vibrations in the phonogram is about 9 to 13. This is about the first hard sound. And the second hard sound, if you see the second hard sound, it occurs during the protodiastole and the part of the isometric relaxation, and it is short and the sharp and high pitched sound it resembles like dub. That is the second hard sound, and the cause of this is closure of the semilunar valves, and the duration is about 0.10 to 0.14 seconds, and the frequency is about 50, and the relation with the ECG is T wave it is, and the number of the vibrations is about 4 to 6 in the phonogram. That is about the second hard sound. And the third hard sound occurs during the rapid filling phase, and so we can't catch it on the stethoscope. By the stethoscope we can't listen this, okay, and it is very low pitched, and rushing of the blood into the ventricle is the cause of the third hard sound, and the duration is about 0.07 to 0.10 second, and the frequency is about 1 to 6, and the relation with the ECG is, it is in between T wave and the P wave, and the number of the vibrations in the phonogram is about 1 to 4. And the fourth hard sound, is occurs during the atrial systole, and it is inaudible sound it is, and the contraction of the atrial muscle is the cause of the fourth hard sound, and the duration is about 0.02 to 0.04 seconds. After this, the frequency is about 1 to 4, and the relation with the ECG is, it is in between P wave and the Q wave, and the vibrations in the phonogram is about 1 to 2. This is what about the heart sounds, and its 4 sounds. Only we can listen first and second heart sound, that is resembles like lub and dub. Third heart sound by the phonogram we can listen, and the fourth heart sound only we can record this by the phonogram. And after this, cardiac murmurs. What is this cardiac murmurs? In the sense, so disturbance sounds in the heart during the systole and the diastole is called as cardiac murmurs. These cardiac murmurs are in 3 types. One is systolic murmurs, and another one is diastolic murmurs, and next one is continuous murmurs. The murmurs are the sounds, abnormal sounds during the systole is called as systolic murmurs, and during the diastole, diastolic murmurs. And whatever it is, whether systole or diastole, it is continuous, that type of murmurs is called as continuous murmurs. Systolic murmurs, because of the incompetence of the atrioventricular valves and the stenosis of the semilunar valves and the anemia, septal defect and coerection of the aorta. That is about the systolic murmurs. And the diastolic murmurs are quite opposite to the systolic murmurs, that is stenosis of the atrioventricular valves and the incompetence of the semilunar valves. And continuous murmurs because of the patent ductus arteriosus. It is a disorder, that is because of it is continuous murmur status. And so what is ECG?